Hi everyone. So today, real quick, I just want to kind of go over getting started basically with a production in general. And this kind of is a really broad subject in terms of like what you may be setting out to do. But the key element is to know that every production, basically, whether you're creating just a 10-second animation or a 3 hour long animated sequence, it all takes pre-planning and your proper writing onto your scripting or your onto your storyboarding. And if you're not familiar with storyboarding, it's basically if you've ever picked up a comic book, that's kind of um, in a nutshell, scene to scene pose out of what is happening in each scene. We talked about in the principles of animation staging and compositing. Well, that basically is your storyboarding, because having a solid staging and solid posing of the characters is where you can start your animations at. And to basically lay those out in whatever, how many acts or how many scenes that your story is going to be is very important to how you begin and how much work you can make your workflow very efficient. So how to go about creating stories? I mean, if you just have no ideas in general, like I said in class, the best thing to do is if you just are blank minded of what to start creating, create something, especially if you have a notable character, create something with a personal experience. It's always a good basis, or a friend's personal experience, or maybe write out a personal narrative and you can just kind of read that script. That's always a good one. The important thing, especially in creating some of these like short animations where you're really getting your timing down, is to not to overthink it too much. Think about the task at hand, walking into a room. You saw the room, you thought, how am I going to get into the room? You walked through the door and you made it into the room. I mean, that is basically your 3-4 story arc right there. And what I mean by that is, and I'll put these links up here. I have a few links to like a 3-act structure. Whenever I approach story, like the 3-act structure is basically your setup, confrontation, and resolution. I sometimes will either use that or like a 4-panel setup. Your setup, your conflict, your climax, and your resolution. This is a good PDF here. I'll upload. It is a kind of a definition terms to, or a definition to some of the terms that you see in story writing. Where's it at? Well, I just saved it. Plot terms. There it is. Parts of a story. You could break it down like this. This is a really good 4-story arc, which is what I like to use. Basically, your setup, your situation is what they call it, the conflict, the climax, and the resolution, which is how I like to set it up with a 4-panel, and I can make these available for download. These little panel here, these templates, or you can basically find them online, which I'll show you. But it's a good way to kind of like think about how, like, if I'm walking through the door of the room, like, okay, it's set up, I'm in the hallway, I see the door. What is the conflict? The conflict is basically me going through the door, me fighting whatever monsters or whatever may be in the way of the door, or even if there's anything in the door. Number 3, the climax, is me making it through the door. Resolution can be anything in terms of what did I learn on my journey, future, where's it heading. So much can be just lumped into basically these simple actions. And honestly, the best way to start doing that is start establishing your shots, like over the shoulder shots, zoom shots, what kind of shots there will be in the actual animation before you even do this. Say if you had a big long production, each scene would basically be, or each act would probably be a certain scene, but you could actually take these very long movies and basically run them into like a 4 or 3-star part just to begin with, So I have the 3-act structure here. Even digging further down the hole, I'd want to talk about the hero's journey. which is very informative and kind of eye-opener. Folder went down on my screen. I can't get it now. Nope. Sorry about that. Here is the 12-part hero's journey, which you can kind of take parts away. You can actually add parts if you wanted to. The hero's journey basically is a common story structure shared by cultures, worldwide, basically, and how it ventures into unknown territory to retrieve something they need. In other words, it features 3 acts, and each one of those acts are basically broke down into more and more depicted on like your ordinary world, call to adventure, refusal of the call. And it's fun to watch movies and videos and kind of start making your own hero's journey graphs. I've did that before, which is good practice, for like a lot of Pixar movies are like this. Just take one of your favorite Pixar movies and start categorizing scenes or images basically into these hero's journey, details and stuff like this. So it's always a good rule of thumb to follow. Create, like I said, when it comes to creating your own story, that's one of them things. It's like I always say, write a personal narrative out. Like what did you do for Thanksgiving? What did you do for Christmas morning? Like how was some sort of like rise and call to action? What was the resolution of it? Like any kind of personal narrative or something that happens to you. That's a good way to start when it comes to story. Apply it, maybe put a twist on it. So. And sometimes, all terms of collaboration with people, this is why, like, this is not a one-man job or a one-person job in terms of doing this production work. You got your writers, you got your screenplay writers, you got your script editors. I was going to show you some more examples of the storyboarding. It can be as many plots as you like, Sometimes the better they'll do that. I know a lot of animation companies, they need to set up each shot in each camera shot, so obviously there'd be different switching back. A good friend of mine worked for Hank Hill back in the day, and he said, talking about certain people to do certain things, he was strictly storyboarding. He'd be given a script, and he would storyboard each one of those. He'd stage the scene and kind of envision what was in the script to visual. Then he would like go upstairs and hand the visual copy up to the animators that were posing the stuff and go start drawing the stuff and writing. He said it was just like a machine all day long. One person did one thing, another person did another thing. Occasionally they went off kilter and did different ideas, but to maintain a steady, efficient workflow from a storyboard artist to an animator, everybody did their own job. So he's got some great examples, Whitney Bruce Martin. And then this boards.com storyboard examples got some great ways on how they've, some of the top ones that kind of come in and out. So how do you go about doing this if you never did do this before? Well, in certain ways, a lot of people just draw out stuff. Hence, some of the other principles come in, your solid drawing, your appeal, your character, making sure the scene is set up. Usually, like with each cell, they'll have like little notations about what it's about what this is. So, which is common, you can go and find templates downloaded basically everywhere. Honestly, I think boards.com has a bunch of templates. They may charge you, but I know you can find some storyboard templates for free. yeah. Free storyboard. Look at this. You may have to create an account or something like that, but you can just create these whichever one you want to. I personally have this one that I just always go to. Is my kind of go-to with my 4-story arc handout. I kind of downloaded, and I'll put that one online for you to get. So what I would do is I would bring this one into Photoshop. I have a little project I was working on for this. So oh, it added it to that. That's fine. So let me open up new because I like that landscape. Four-story arc. That UNCW was the joys of making this work. There we go. There we go. So now I brought it as a new layer, so I can just kind of start adding stuff to the background and get rid of that. So, you know, you can digitally do this. You can print these things out and just do it with a pencil. Scan them in. It doesn't necessarily have to be digital. People sometimes in the digital age work better with a stylus pen and everything, but say your setup would be like establishing shot. Say I was working on my bioluminescent organism animation. This would be my establishing shot. I could write some text out here. Every shot of main character. I have some funny fonts going on here. Let's just keep it simple. Let me find the. Let me try to spell it correctly. You can either draw in, you know, whatever you need. You can use different layers for this. This isn't really a Photoshop tutorial, so it's kind of like known how to use some of these tools. Kind of got your establishing shot of your main character. You could use your rule of thirds if you want to composite in a nice scene. Just kind of have like a little underwater. He's coming. My character had the squids. So maybe I want to kind of add a zoom motion here that, you know, that's the way it would kind of zoom in. You know, you could maybe draw some arrows to kind of note that that's how the camera might move in, and then put in the notations. Camera rolls over the mountain to character. This was the setup, you know, then we've seen the character, we know who he is. We don't know the timing on how long this would take. That's when it comes to like making your animatic and learning your timing of it. But the important thing about this is just establishing your setup, your main story arc, so you kind of know how things are going to roll. Then if you wanted to, if you had images, like I have an image here, sometimes putting these real images in there, if you already have them, kind of helps, makes the story a little bit more presentable, I guess, you know. But sometimes it maybe stay with one. There's not any sort of stylistic, you know, like staying real rough is maybe a good method of doing it. But for demo purposes, I have my establishing character, and now the conflict. Well, the conflict be, well, maybe he's encountered another character. And I'm going to make him a different color. Just do it. I don't want to do that. It's affecting everything. Let me see. I'm just doing my color changes over here because what I'm going to do is change the color on the fly on this guy. I'm going to press Alt. There we go. I'll just turn it down a little bit. Photoshop magic for you. So the conflict could be main character encounters enemy, you know? This could also be actually main character encounters enemy could be part of the setup, but right now I'm kind of adding it to the conflict. Encounters enemy and a fight ensues or some sort of and scene can kind of run from like you can put your camera shots, what the camera will be, you know, how things are. It's not necessarily that like you go ahead and start adding kind of like arrows to every single one of these, you know, it's just basically if I were going to give a presentation on what the story is and how the story arcs, I want to be able to present it in a nice, clean, presentable way that people understand everything that's there, and an animator would be able to understand, okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and set my scene up like this, so I can kind of go off the storyboard like this, and yeah, go from there. So this is kind of how it would kind of start to work, but yeah, and then you just kind of save this out, and you can. I like to kind of cut these images up after the fact, and then drop these in. I'll go over that in the next one. Drop these images into like After Effects or Premiere basically, and start getting my timing down, you know, and maybe start adding some sound effects to make it what they call an animatic. And an animatic is basically a timeline, a movie file of the storyboard with sound, script applied to it maybe already, real rough like this, but with, so basically you can kind of read the story in like a video, a still image video, kind of like any kind of like motion comic almost. Not really too much motion, but like a video comic that you would read, that you'd have enough time to read the words and understand the timing, so you can kind of start envision timing in terms of just reading it through a comic and just waiting and then turning the page when you're done reading. So how the movie would kind of go. So, but I'll go over that in the next tutorial. So how to load those up into After Effects. So, okay, well, I hope this helps, and I will leave some links for this board website and some examples and the 4-story art PDF I have. I could upload that to the file right here that you can start using this 4-story arc, or if you want to turn it into this PDF as well, or if you want to just use the 3-story arc too, which is perfectly fine, I'll add that that link on there as well. So okay, well, thanks for watching.